The air outside Crestwood High buzzed with the restless chatter of teenagers. Backpacks bounced against shoulders, sneakers slapped the pavement, and the gates of the old brick building loomed like a portal into another day of whispered secrets and quiet battles. The morning sun was bright, but the shadows on the ground seemed longer, stretching toward Emma as though they knew her story better than anyone else did. "Hey, there she is!" The voice shot through the air like a whip. Laughter followed, sharp and cruel. Emma didn't need to turn to know who it was. Tyler and his pack of friends, the self-appointed kings of Crestwood, were closing in again. Her heart stuttered, her body preparing for what it had done so many times before. Run! Her sneakers pounded against the sidewalk as she bolted toward the gates. Her chest burned, her hair flew behind her, and the taunts grew louder. "Faster, rabbit! Don't trip, loser!" Their words sliced deeper than she wanted to admit. For months, she had lived like this, humiliated, chased, always half a step away from collapsing. But that morning, something inside her snapped. Emma slowed. Then, shockingly, she stopped right at the school gate. The crowd that had begun to form erupted in laughter. "What's wrong? You give up?" Tyler jeered, pushing past a smaller kid to get to the front. His grin was wide, mocking, dripping with arrogance. Emma didn't answer. She simply turned to face him. Her chest rose and fell with each heavy breath, but her eyes were steady. Unmoving. Tyler chuckled, mistaking her silence for fear. He stepped closer, spreading his arms to the crowd like a performer basking in applause. "Guess the rabbit's finally tired," he mocked. His friends snickered behind him, their voices merging into a chorus of cruelty. Then, in one breathtaking instant, Emma moved. She bent slightly, her hands gripping Tyler's varsity jacket at the waist. Before he could react, she straightened, hoisting him into the air as if he weighed nothing. Gasps erupted. Tyler flailed, his mouth open in shock, his power evaporating as quickly as the laughter of the crowd. The courtyard went silent. Students froze mid-step, mouths hanging open. The boy who had made so many tremble was now helpless in the arms of the girl they had all underestimated. Emma's voice rang out, calm and steady. "One more move, Tyler, and you're done." The words cut sharper than any shout could have. For the first time, the bully was speechless. "But before I carry you deeper into this moment, I want to pause here. If stories like this of courage found in the unlikeliest hearts speak to you, then you'll want to be part of our community. Subscribe to SoulTouch Stories, where each tale is crafted to stir your soul, to remind you that strength and hope can rise in anyone, anywhere. Join us, you don't want to miss the journeys we share here. Now, let's return to Emma. She held Tyler suspended for a breathless moment longer, then lowered him carefully, deliberately, until his feet touched the ground again. But the spell had already broken. The king of Crestwood had been toppled without a punch thrown. Whispers rippled through the students. "Did you see that?" She lifted him like he was nothing. A girl near the steps, holding a cup of coffee, almost dropped it as she stared in disbelief. Tyler stumbled back, his face pale. His smirk was gone, replaced by something Emma had never seen in him before: fear. He tried to salvage his pride, muttering, This isn't over." But his voice shook. Emma didn't bother responding. She simply turned, walked past him, and entered the school. That morning, something fundamental had shifted. But Emma's strength hadn't appeared overnight. It was forged in silence, in shadows, in the ache of loneliness that had haunted her long before Tyler's taunts. She had grown up in a house that echoed with absence. Her father had left when she was 12, his promises of "I'll visit" fading like smoke. Her mother worked 2 jobs, her shoulders carrying the weight of survival. Emma often ate dinner alone, the hum of the fridge her only company. The world had taught her early that if she wanted protection, she would have to build it herself. At first, running had been her shield. She had escaped bullies with speed, endured insults by shrinking smaller. But each night, as she stared at the ceiling, she felt the anger building. Anger at Tyler. At the whispers. At her own fear. So she began to change. In the early mornings before school, she jogged farther. At night, when homework was done, she dropped to the floor for push-ups and sit-ups until her arms and stomach burned. She studied self-defense videos, practicing stances in her small bedroom. She didn't tell anyone. She didn't need validation. This wasn't about glory, it was about freedom. And that morning at the gate, all of it had come to the surface. Still, standing up had its price. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some called her a hero. Others whispered she was dangerous, unstable. Teachers debated in the lounge, was this self-defense or aggression? Tyler's parents threatened to sue, furious that their son had been humiliated. Emma walked the halls with new eyes watching her. Some stared with admiration, others with judgment. Friends she thought she had kept their distance, unsure how to navigate her new strength. The loneliness grew heavier, even as the fear around her began to fade. One afternoon, a freshman girl approached her quietly in the library. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "Thank you. You don't know me, but Tyler used to say things to me too." Emma felt her throat tighten. That simple gratitude reminded her that she hadn't just stood up for herself. She had stood up for others too. But the nights were harder. Emma sat in her room, staring at an old photo of her father. She pressed her forehead against the worn picture and whispered, "Why wasn't I enough to make you stay?" Tears blurred her vision. Strength in the daylight felt powerful. But in the darkness, she still felt like a little girl abandoned and unwanted. Rain poured one evening as she sat under the bleachers, the sound drumming above her. She let the tears fall freely, mixing with the rain. She realized then that strength wasn't about never breaking. It was about rising again, even when you had been broken 100 times before. The following week, Tyler tried to reclaim his throne. He swaggered through the cafeteria, trying to laugh louder, speak bolder. But the cracks showed. His friends didn't rally as quickly. The whispers weren't about his power anymore, they were about his defeat. The aura of invincibility had shattered. Emma, meanwhile, was approached by more students. A boy who had once been tripped in the hallway asked softly, "Could you, maybe show me how to defend myself?" A group of girls invited her to sit with them at lunch, their eyes shining with admiration. Emma hesitated, still unsure how to carry the weight of being seen not as a victim, but as a leader. Yet slowly, she began to accept it. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was helping others survive too. And if you felt Emma's journey resonate with you, if you felt the burn of injustice or the ache of standing alone, let this be a reminder, you're not alone. Stories like Emma's are why SoulTouch Stories exists. So if this touched your heart, take a second to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep sharing stories of courage, resilience, and hope. Emma's story didn't end with lifting Tyler. It was only the beginning. She learned that courage isn't about defeating someone else, it's about refusing to surrender yourself. She carried her scars, her loneliness, her battles, but she carried them standing tall. And that made all the difference. The world had laughed when she stopped running at the gate. But in that moment, she proved something unforgettable. Sometimes the bravest act isn't to run faster or hide deeper. Sometimes, the bravest act is to stop, turn around, and face the storm head-on. And maybe that's the message meant for you too. When the world mocks your pause, your stillness, your refusal to play its cruel games, remember Emma. Remember that even the smallest defiance can freeze the loudest laughter into silence. Because strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it stands quietly at a school gate, and lifts the weight of fear into the air.